分手，但係你要放我出嚟。
出来吧，快出来吧！
Not making a distinction between male and female, but the form of man is in the process of changing to forms of light that are not of this world. Now we hear that all the time today from all the channel material and all the books and the workshops that are out there. 13,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, this is a pretty outrageous thing for anyone to say, that we were changing into forms of light. Now, two passages from the Book of Mormon. These are a couple of my favorites. It says that in those days, in the days of the shift of the ages, that ye shall never, that ye shall never endure the pains of death when I come in my glory, speaking of the universal reference beings, ye shall be changed in the twinkling of an eye from mortality to immortality. And it goes on to say that it is in our bodies that we will see our Creator, in our bodies that we'll see God. Now, this has absolutely nothing to do with religion, although it is taken from what may be considered religious texts. This is ancient information of a phase transition within the human body, information that was left to us that does not make a lot of sense in the past without the context within which to frame this transition. The ancient Essenes, I identify very closely with the traditions of the Essenes. The Essenes were a sect of individuals who separated themselves from others of their time so that they could live their traditions and their belief systems in the way that they felt was appropriate. And in the Essene traditions, we're given a much different story in terms of our history, our purpose, our lives in this world, and this phase transition that Earth and our bodies are going through in this moment. We'll give that transition a name in just a few minutes. So through the Essene traditions, much of this information, many of these traditions are found in the scrolls that were found in the Qumran area around the Dead Sea. They became known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're certainly not limited to the Dead Sea Scrolls. We see the Essene traditions throughout the Tibetan texts, throughout the Egyptian texts, in the Ethiopian traditions, in the Armenian traditions. They are scattered throughout our ancient texts if we have the wisdom to see them. And there is a universal thread that runs through those traditions. Okay? In the traditions of the Essenes, through the Dead Sea Scrolls and many of the other texts, what we find is this. We find that all of the biblical books in the Old Testament are verified in those Dead Sea Scrolls, and more that we have not seen. And what it appears has happened, and what we know from our history, is that somewhere around the year 325 AD, somewhere right around in there, what we call our biblical text was revamped. Many books were deleted. Those that were left were compressed into a smaller form. Some of the books that were taken out of our text remain in the Dead Sea Scrolls, remain in the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the Nag Hammadi texts, also discovered in 1947, in the Tibetan texts. Look at what some of these books are all about. This is fascinating information. The Gospel of the Birth of Mary. This is a beautiful body of information that details the life of Mary. Mary's mother, for example, 81 years old when she gave birth to the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. And Mary's mother had been barren for those 81 years, had never given birth to anyone else. Mary was 14 years old when she married her husband Joseph. All that information. The Essene mystery schools played a key role in these women's lives as they were Essene initiates. The books of visions of the prophets, the letters of Herod and Pilate. This is an especially interesting book. Between these two men, the letters were written immediately following the crucifixion of Christ. And the letters go something like this. Pilate wrote a letter to Herod, who was the king at that time, and said, I think we just made a mistake in this execution. And Herod wrote a letter back to Pilate and said, what do you mean we? Why do you say we made a mistake? You were the one that made that choice. And Pilate writes back and says, well, I didn't really want him killed. It was the people of the village, and it goes on from there. It gives us a very different view of the life of the Essenes, of the thought processes surrounding this execution. The secrets of the Book of Enoch. This is one of the reasons I put this in here. The Book of Enoch is a beautiful book of mysteries. The prophet Enoch, taken from his time ahead of our time to see what our world would be like, taken back to his time, recording that information and passing it down to us so that we would have a map of what this time in our history looks like. The Book of Enoch, portions of it are so detailed they actually become a little boring as we go through this, as they give day-by-day accounts of the change of the cycles of the moon and change of the cycles of the sun and the magnetic fields, the earth tilting on its axis is actually what it says in this Book of Enoch. Those are books that we no longer have in our biblical text and that have a tremendous bearing on this time in history and this time in our lives. Well, through these Essene traditions, we are given insights into the life of a man, a reverenced being, and I say that very intentionally, a man who came as a human to live among humans, to learn what humans had learned. A man we now know is Jesus of Nazareth. And as I'm saying this, what I'll say to you now on the camera, it may be no accident that this is being videoed on this day. This is Easter Sunday, 1996. And everyone here in the studio now is smiling because we're actually filming this on Easter Sunday. It may be no accident that is happening. That this initiate, Jesus of Nazareth, lived the life that you and I have learned to live. He learned to trade. He lived, archaeological records now are showing that the little village that he lived in wasn't so little at all. It was a booming metropolis of about 40,000 people. He learned of commerce. He had to do everything that you are learning to do in your life. He had to master the emotions of his life in order to proceed through the choices that he was making in his life. I particularly love this image of Jesus as an initiate, as a student learning. This is again from Cheryl Yombrock Rose. The title of this image is Christ Anchoring the Celtic Ray in England. This is one of the sacred sites in England. So through the Essene traditions, what we are shown, what we are told is this, that at least once, one man, Jesus of Nazareth, remembered the true nature of his being, the nature of compassion, and we'll define that compassion genetically in just a few moments. He remembered that compassion, he became that compassion in his life, and in doing so, allowed a biochemical shift in his body, a genetic change, a reordering of genetic coding. You'll see all of this very, very clearly with schematics and drawings in just a few moments. And in that reordering, he allowed himself the opportunity to live a phase transition, to live a change of state. And today, we call that change of state resurrection. Now, resurrection has such a powerful connotation. Whenever we say the word resurrection, for so many people, it conjures up images of religious processes. Resurrection has nothing to do with religion, although religions were built surrounding the concepts of what this alchemy is all about. This is the union, the holy union, the marriage between spirit and the elements of this earth, as you saw in Alex Gray's body. So what we're experiencing is this. Our earth is going through a phase transition, low magnetics, higher frequencies. We live within the fields of those transitions. We live upon the earth. Every cell in our body is attempting to maintain a resonance, to stay tuned, to stay with those magnetics, to stay with those frequencies, allowing us to also transition with the earth into this higher expression, this higher form of energy that is being expressed through the 7.8 and 8.6 and 9 cycle per second energy. Resurrection is a path. This man, Jesus of Nazareth, anchored this wisdom. He lived among us and anchored this wisdom in our conscious matrix. He became the living bridge for us 2,000 years later, so that we would have access to his wisdom as we actually live the transition, as Earth actually carries us through the transition. Now, there's a lot of controversy as to whether or not this man actually ever existed, lived or not. Some of the controversy centers around this relic that is known as the Shroud of Turin. Now, this particular shroud, this is a linen shroud that was wrapped, it's said to have been wrapped around the body of Christ following the crucifixion, and is this shroud that was left in the burial chamber after his body disappeared following his resurrection. A lot of controversy surrounding this. I'll say right now, we will never know for sure who was in this shroud. We don't know certainly who it was. In the past, through the methods of dating, carbon-14 dating and things like that, it has taken so much of a sample in order to establish the dates that the original artifact has been destroyed. It would have taken a square foot of this linen being destroyed to date this according to carbon-14 traditions. Well, in 1978, Los Alamos National Labs in north central New Mexico was able to obtain this shroud for a period of time, and they ran some new analyses on it without destroying the fibers, and here's what they found. What they discovered was this. The controversy has been whether or not this image, what is this image that we're seeing on this 2,000-year-old shroud? Some people say it's painted, some people say it's body oils from the body that was within the shroud. What Los Alamos National Labs is saying, and this team was headed up by a gentleman named Ray Rogers in 1978. They're saying this, that the weaving and the linen type of this shroud are authentic to the date about 2,000 years ago that we would expect to see from that time in history. So it probably is about 2,000 years old. That the image that you're seeing on here appears to be a photographic negative on this linen. And here's why they say that. Because when we photograph the negative of the shroud, we end up with a positive of the image. So it may be that this shroud essentially is a photographic negative over 2,000 years old. When we photograph that now, we have a very good positive image of whoever this man was. Now, what the report says, it says that this image was not painted, it's not body oils, it's not some a charcoal rubbing or anything like that. That the fibers of the linen are actually scorched they were scorched from within the shroud, whatever the shroud was covering, the body. The fibers were scorched from within by a high, rapid, intense heat source of biochemical origin unknown to us at this time. That's actually what the report says. We call that resurrection. A rapid influx of tremendous amounts of life force, or chi, or prana, intentionally distributed to every cell in the body, allowing those cells a higher vibratory expression of themselves. So we'll never know precisely who this man is. The damage on the man's wrists, around his head, and in his side do match the damage that is given to us, that was given to the body of Christ during the crucifixion process. Again, we'll never know for certain precisely who this man was. The reason I have this slide here is because I'm showing you at least once in our history we may have been given the opportunity to see, to witness the demonstration of a change of state, a phase transition that we call resurrection. In the Essene traditions, then what we see is at least once this reference being, a reference being that we know as Jesus of Nazareth, the gift that that reference being left for us then was the gift of the wisdom to allow this phase transition, this change of state, this process that we call resurrection within our bodies. Compassion in the Essene traditions. Compassion is a knowable, livable science. And again, this is the image that to me conjures up the sense of compassion, Cheryl's image of Archangel Michael in prayer over the Middle East in the Gulf War. It is through compassion, the science of compassion, and you and I will work together to arrive at this understanding through this video. Through the science of compassion, that emotions, as they were allowed to express fully in the body, shift genetic patterns, genetic codes within the body, allowing the body the tuning, allowing the body to ride in the transition with the earth. As the earth goes through her changes, our bodies are being asked to go through theirs. The image that you're seeing is a frozen image, a still image of